Hi, Stacie here from Quiet Connections. So me and Hayley attended a panel discussion last night at the Museum of Cornish Life, almost said health then, as part of the I Was, I Am, I Will Be events that are happening throughout this month. And the discussion was around stress, how are we coping in Cornwall. It was quite an interesting discussion, but what was of particular interest to myself and Hayley was one of the questions that the audience put to the panel regarding social anxiety. I wonder why that was of interest, I mean. So the question was, how do we manage social anxiety in the workplace? And it was quite insightful to see actually that some of the panel members perhaps didn't have quite as much awareness around what social anxiety is and how it can present itself in terms of behaviours and the impact that that can have in the workplace in general. So we wanted to continue that conversation and that discussion today. So I thought I would share some of my own personal experiences of feeling socially anxious in a working environment. And I have quite a few stories that I could share, including one from a time when I was 17 that involves applying for a job at McDonald's, but I might save that one for another day. It's actually quite a funny story. But particularly today I wanted to focus on a job that I got just after I graduated from uni. So this is back in 2014. And at the time, after I graduated from uni, I was actually in a position and a place of feeling quite good about myself. And at the time I also wasn't at all really aware of what social anxiety was, or that it was something that I've experienced for most of my life. So, and still do sometimes today. So, like I said, I was feeling quite good about myself back in, mid 2014, late 2014. And I thought I would go for a job that I had no experience in, basically. It was a marketing role, and I applied for this job with the motivation that I wanted to learn about marketing because I knew that it would be a skill that would be of use to me later in life. Had goals already back then of, running a business and self-employment and stuff like that. So marketing skills was something that I knew that would be very beneficial. My only prior experience of any marketing work was a couple of modules that I'd done at uni. So I was I was approaching this job with the mindset of, I want to learn, which is a really healthy mindset to have. And I would love to say that that mindset continued as I got the job, but however it was quite short-lived at that time. So what I found was that after getting the job, I very quickly started to doubt myself, and those feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm incapable, I'm all the things that old beliefs and stuff that I would identify with that would basically tell me that I'm no good and I'm not worthy of doing anything. A lot of those feelings very quickly kind of popped up for me again once the job was accepted and offered to me. So and I think the combination of me internally feeling that way and believing those things about myself, in combination with doing a lot of tasks and roles that were incredibly new to me, and things that I hadn't previously done, and it was a lot of new information. I was going on lots of workshops and training courses and stuff, and at the time I kind of believed that like you go on a training course and you learn about it all theoretically, and then you should just be able to implement it and be able to do it perfectly. That's kind of what I thought was, what everyone did. The word practice wasn't really in my vocabulary back then. So, so a lot of that was kind of going on. And then obviously, it doesn't really work like that. It doesn't work like that. You don't just do a workshop and then, you know how to do it and you're gonna do it amazingly well and perfect every single time. It's, I hate to say it, but that's not life. Bubble burst. So, yeah, there was that feeling of lots of shoulds. But not only was I personally and internally believing and feeling those things, that message was actually reinforced to me by my employer as well. And I remember a particularly shameful experience, and I was about 3 months into the job, which, by the way, 3 months is not a very long time. So bear that in mind if anyone else is experiencing this as well. Where I was sat at my desk and my employer was stood at the door behind me, so I was kind of turned around to speak to her, and the words, "You've been here for 3 months, you should know what you're doing by now," came out of her mouth. And because I was already feeling incompetent anyway, I think having that kind of reinforced and feeling, well, I suppose, like, knowing that that's what, my employer was thinking of me as well, it was very shameful. And I felt very, very ashamed of myself, actually. And I can't say that it was very encouraging or motivating or did much in terms of helping me to improve the work. In fact, I think the opposite happened instead. So, and essentially if I was to like observe myself and how I acted in that job, I was very withdrawn. I wasn't sharing ideas. In fact, I felt uncomfortable sharing any idea that came from me, despite the fact that in my interview that was one of the things that I kind of bigged up quite a bit and was something that, I put out there as being a strength of mine, that, I have lots of ideas and stuff like that, which is true. But it wasn't something then that I was feeling comfortable with sharing. So, my behaviour, very, very withdrawn, just in a state of panic for pretty much the duration of working there. And, from very small little things to having to speak to customers on the phone, having to deal with customers face to face, having to, if something goes wrong, having to tell your employer that something's gone wrong, like that was a terrifying experience. And yeah, lots of feelings of, I'm not good enough, I don't know what I'm doing here, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm never going to be able to do this job. Yeah, lots of crappy things. And a lot of that really was around the feeling of, I'm never gonna live up to the expectation of my employer, or the expectation of myself as well, to be honest. But you know, I think when there's a lot of things around social anxiety that relate, I think, a lot to people pleasing, and a lot to not wanting other people to see our flaws. And what I was kind of feeling in that job is that everything that I was doing was exposing a flaw of mine. So and then as a result of that, you know, really what I was telling myself and what I was believing was that I am flawed. So by the time I left, I was then kind of believing about myself that I was never going to make a good employee. I wasn't suited for employment, and I mentioned earlier, you know, that I wanted to kind of go down the route of self-employment anyway, but part of the reason why I did take that route after leaving this job, I say after leaving, I was fired, was because the fear of applying for another job and going through that whole experience again of having to meet new people, you know, because bear in mind also one of the fears is, you know, was around having to meet new people in the workplace. Like, hi, I'm all by myself and there's lots of other people that I don't know and I'm trying to get to know them and stuff. Like, that can be quite a fearful thing. Especially I think if you don't feel like you're good enough. So yeah, the thought of going through that process again of having to learn a new job, having to meet new people, I couldn't do it. Not gonna lie, I couldn't do it. It was not something that I felt like I wanted to put myself through again. And so essentially I chose to go self-employed as a way to avoid, at that time, more than anything, having to be an employee of somebody else. Because the way in which I kind of viewed it back then was that, well, if I'm self-employed, the only person I need to answer to is myself. That was, again, very wrong. It also doesn't play out that way either, but I certainly felt more comfortable being self-employed than I did being an employee. So, and by the way, that's not the solution. I hope that doesn't come across as if you feel uncomfortable with working, then, you know, or being an employee and in another job, that the solution is to go self-employed. It's not. Those are very, very big decisions to make yourself. I'm just saying that it was part of that decision process for me to choose to go self-employed. You know, one part of that was the driving force of I don't want to go through the experience of working with other people face to face and learning new things and not feeling as though I could take a break when I would need to. That certainly came into it a bit as well. So there was quite a bit involved in it, but kind of going back to the question then of like, how do we manage social anxiety in the workplace? I think honestly, a lot of it comes down to us personally doing the internal work ourselves. You know, there was no way that I was going to function efficiently and to the way that I wanted to with the beliefs and the things that I was, you know, believing about myself and the patterns that kind of had attached to it. I actually just kind of forgot what I was saying then. Yeah, essentially, you know, nobody else is responsible for ourselves other than us anyway. So a lot of that would be, I had work to do on myself. I knew I had work to do on myself. I wasn't doing it at that time. So working on ourselves and helping ourselves is certainly one aspect, I think, of it. But the other aspect certainly is about creating working environments in which that are nurturing and are safe places for people to be able to share those anxieties and be able to talk openly and stuff about it. So, I mean, one of the panel members last night mentioned the fact that, it requires needing to have a conversation between the employer and the employee. And obviously there are challenges with that, I think, for someone who is feeling socially anxious. I know certainly, if I was to look at that job back then, I wouldn't have felt comfortable having that conversation, despite the fact that at the same time I can look back on it now and think that if I had had that conversation with my employer, I do think that things might have been different. And I do genuinely believe that she would have actually really supported me. But, unless the environment is already there and established to feel as though it is a safe place in order to have that conversation, then it becomes a challenge to initiate it. So I would say that employers, you do have a responsibility of creating a nurturing environment where where people can take their time to learn stuff, where demonstrate from the top down that within your working culture, within your working environment, that it's safe and it's open to be able to express your vulnerabilities and express the things that you worry about. And more than anything, it's not enough just saying that that's what people can do. I think as a leader of a working force, you genuinely have to demonstrate it through action. And I mean, obviously we talk a lot here at Quiet Connections about comfort zone stretching. So it's also offering a place where people can take their time and take little baby steps, I think, to help prevent entering that panic zone, And that's about, I think, as much as I have to share today. So yeah, we're going to continue this conversation, I think, for quite a while. There's a lot to unpick around how to manage social anxiety in the workplace. And again, in terms of both sides of you as an individual, as the working environment as a whole, and as leaders and employers and managers and supervisors and, the people who essentially are being looked up to demonstrate what this working place is like. Because bear in mind, if you are someone who is a manager or an employer, a leader, a supervisor, whatever it is that you want to call yourself, if you yourself are operating from a place of, let's say, perfectionism, for example, then regardless of what you say, that things don't have to be perfect, that message will still seep through. Take into account that, only, 10% of the words that we say account for how we communicate. So, if you are operating from that space yourself, subconsciously through lots of different behaviours and things like that, the message that you believe yourself personally is the message that will be communicated to others. So yes, I think I will leave it at that for today. And please let me know your own kind of experiences. Let me know what your thoughts and stuff are on this situation, in terms of how to manage social anxiety in the workplace. You know, it all helps go towards the research that we're doing here at Quiet Connections. And yeah, leave a comment or something. Okay, I'm gonna go now, so bye.